So sitting down with a realtor can feel really scary, especially if you are a first-time home buyer and you're trying to figure out what the process looks like. Maybe you don't really want to get started yet, but you need information. So this video is going to break down everything you can expect when you first do a buyer consultation and you sit down either over coffee or on a Zoom call with your realtor. The very first thing we're going to go over is your expectations around what this process looks like. That might be talking about your timeline or talking about some of your big goals, but it's not going to be diving into the nitty-gritty yet. We're really just trying to figure out what is going to be our best path forward. So oftentimes people will share with me like what it is that their goal is. Maybe they're renting and their lease is coming up in the next 6 months and they want to figure out a plan between now and then. Other times people are in a position where, hey, I have 2 months to move and I need to get going now. Whatever that process is and whatever that process looks like, I want to know up front so we know kind of what this meeting is going to look like. So that's the very first thing we're doing. We're kind of breaking bread, just having a casual conversation around what are kind of the big goals that you might have and figuring out if home buying is something that you actually really need to do or really want to do. The next thing we're going to dive into is everything about the home buying process. So I have a little packet that I always bring with me that outlines everything about my job as well as the process in general. So a couple different things about real estate agents that you should probably know watching this video that you wouldn't otherwise know until we sit down is that on the buying side, historically, the seller has always paid that commission. However, as of January of 2024, that process has changed a little bit. And now it is a conversation we need to have up front between both myself and you or whoever your realtor is about what commission is going to look like moving forward. We're still at the beginning of 2024. At this point, sellers are still offering to pay a buyer's commission, which means that a buyer does not actually pay that commission. Hopefully that process stays the same. And so as of right now, it is a non-issue. However, there could be a chance in the future where a buyer needs to consider that in their closing costs and do their due diligence when hiring a realtor. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about what our job is. So long gone are the days that our job is to drive you around town and open doors. And while we certainly do that, for the most part, what our job is now, at least in my opinion, is doing market research for you, helping you identify the properties that maybe look good on photos, but do or do not match what you're ultimately looking for, and then help you find properties off market, all while keeping in mind the financial investment of the property. I'm really passionate about making sure my clients are able to build wealth through real estate, which means not just finding the shiny, beautiful house, but also keeping in mind what market appreciation in that area looks like, and if that is going to fit their family long-term, or if it's maybe something that we can use this as a stepping stone, and if in the future it has rental capabilities. All of those things we're keeping in mind. And then as we go through the process of searching, we're really looking at just a couple of properties. I find that most people end up finding their house in under 10 homes that they've seen in person. And while that number seems really small, think about what we've done in advance of that. So we've already done a full analysis of everything you're looking for. We've gone through all of the properties online. A lot of these have virtual tours or video walkthroughs. So you're seeing so much of a property digitally before ever having to step in the door. And by the time we get to the houses that you're actually stepping inside of, they're all already matching what you're wanting. The challenge becomes if we step into homes and they're not matching what you're wanting, we've got to go back to the drawing board and figure out where we miss things, what you're ultimately looking for, and then make those adjustments. If your realtor is not doing those things with you, they're really doing you a disservice because it's spending their time and your time looking at things that just don't make sense. And while yes, looking at properties can be fun, if that's something you want to do, go get your real estate license, right? So I always encourage my clients to really do a deep dive on everything that they're wanting in a home, so that when we're looking at properties in person, we're making sure that they are properties that they're going to ultimately like and that match the list that they kind of have in terms of their wants and needs. I will say there's also this thing that I like to call buyer fatigue, and that is if you go see 20, 30 properties and nothing is matching what you want, you start to get this idea that what you want doesn't exist. And while that could be true, for the most part, what I find is that's because you're not actually getting an opportunity to see homes that match you, and instead you're looking at everything out there instead of just the couple. It's kind of like if you're dating and you only ever date people that just are not a match for you at all, you're gonna feel like the right one doesn't exist out there. But if you spent your time kind of talking to people, texting, having conversations, and then went out on dates, you would probably have more connections a lot quicker. Also, during this period of time where we're getting coffee and kind of talking about the process, we're also diving into what the whole thing looks like. So of course, we're shopping for properties. We're also going into the process of potentially writing an offer. And when we sit down and write an offer, there's a lot of different terms that we can go over. And I always make sure my clients are super comfortable with what that means up front. They're super comfortable with the contracts, all of the terms we put together, and what the market's doing around that house. Today, in the market we're in parts of King County, we are seeing multiple offers where we're doing really aggressive tactics in order to get the property for our clients. And in other parts of Pierce County at the same time, we're seeing the ability to offer dramatically less, have a lot more contingencies, and all of that's happening at the same time. So I get sometimes people will ask me, they say, well, what's the market doing? You know, what can we do right now? What is this kind of this overall idea of how we're gonna be able to structure an offer? And there's just no way for us to answer that until we're looking at a specific house in a specific neighborhood. Sometimes that means we have to test the water and make like a fake offer at first, not to submit it, but just to kind of go through the process. Sometimes that helps people kind of figure out what this is gonna look like and get a little bit more information about the terms before they ever get to finding the house they want and then having to go through that process. So that offer process usually happens within about 24 hours. That means we've seen the property that you like and we start putting together an offer all within 24 hours. Oftentimes we're hearing back from the seller only a day or 2 days after that. That process can feel really scary for people. We're going through the idea of never having seen this home before to seeing it and now writing an offer without, spending more than maybe 20 to 30 minutes inside the home. And so if that feels scary, just know that that's completely normal. It's okay to feel scary in that kind of scenario. And we always try to build in contingencies that are gonna allow you to make sure that the home is right for you and do your due diligence. That means going through an inspection period, having financing contingencies to make sure that on the financial side that home works for you. And if there's anything like a home sale contingency or a septic review, all of those can be built in as well to make sure that the home that you think you're liking is ultimately the one that you really want. So we've gone through that whole process, and together we go through that in a whole lot more detail than I'm doing on this video because I don't want to bore you here. We'll also talk about little terms like inspections and kind of what that process looks like. I think it's really important to note that an inspection and an appraisal are two different things. So an inspection is going to be an independent inspector who's coming in, who works for you actually, and is going to identify everything about the property that you need to know before purchasing it. They're going to tell you anything that's potentially wrong on the property or things that are major that need to be fixed. And I'll just give you a little nugget here. Even new construction homes have like 20 to 30 page reports. No home is perfect. It's really a laundry list for you to know what you're getting yourself into, and also for us to have an opportunity to ask the seller to fix it if there's anything big outstanding. So once we get through the inspection, what you'll also have is an appraisal, and an appraisal is actually a bank valuation. Now we have no contact with the appraiser. We don't actually get to choose who it is. In fact, your bank is going to make a random selection of an appraiser. They will come in, do an independent evaluation of the value, and then give us an idea of whether or not the property will actually appraise, or you can get the loan for the amount that we've stated in our contract. So that's also important to know that as we're going through the process of potentially multiple offers or offering less, it's also important for us to keep in mind what a potential appraiser will value the property at. And it's always something that I'm doing on the back end to make sure my clients are not getting themselves into a situation where they're going to be paying potentially more than what the appraisal value is, or running into a situation where we have to negotiate that back with the seller. Those are two major pieces of this process that I think sometimes are missed and sometimes people don't fully understand as we're starting. So I thought it was important now to share that with you in the video. And then as we go through this process as well, in terms of having coffee and chit-chatting about everything you're wanting, we're gonna then go through a full analysis of everything you're looking for. I'm not talking about how many bedrooms and bathrooms you're wanting. I'm talking about everything down to the details of, do you have any large pieces of furniture that need to be accommodated, like a pool table? Do you work from home or have future plans to work from home? What kind of yard do you need and why do you need that kind of yard? Is it because you want to have a garden? Do you need sun or shade? Do you need a certain type of soil because of that garden? All of those details we will get out so that you feel really confident going into this process. Those are types of filters that you just don't have access to seeing on Zillow and Redfin and kind of other sites. And so what I then do with that information is go back and create a custom search on the MLS and hand select properties to send to you. Now, while I might not always have the soil type up front for that silly example, those are things that I'm able to find out before we ever go into the home. I've had a client in the past where gardening, and this is why I use the example, gardening was a super important thing for her. She wanted to make sure she was able to do the type of gardening that she wanted to do. It wasn't vegetable, it was flower, and specifically a type of flower. And all of that had to do with the type of property we were looking at. the angle that the house was situated on the lot, the type of trees that are on the lot. We were able to rule out properties that might have been perfect, but didn't match the yard and the kind of situation she needed that was a top priority for her. So that is part of this process, is to make sure that I'm able to get inside your brain basically and really help you matchmake the properties that are going to work for you. Now, if you're a first-time home buyer and maybe you are just trying to get your foot in the door, we might not go that deep. But for somebody who is moving up into maybe their forever home, or they purchased a couple properties in the past, they know those details, and it's really important to flesh those out in advance. So this whole meeting, when we're sitting down, it can take easily 45 minutes to an hour and a half, just depending on how many details we need to flesh out. It's kind of like a working interview, right? It's an opportunity for us to decide if we're really gonna work together or not. I think it is important that you guys know that at either the beginning or the end of those meetings, when you're sitting down with a realtor, they will have you sign documentation, and it's because you're effectively hiring somebody. So just like you would hire any other professional now in Washington state and potentially in other states in the near future, you will have to sign a binding document with your realtor that agrees to allow you to work with them, that they can work with you, and you have kind of all the details fleshed out on that end. So that's important to know up front. That is not a scary document, but it is important to know so you're not like blindsided when you have that meeting. If you have questions on what this process looks like, or maybe you never did that with your realtor and you're kind of trying to figure out how to get more information, feel free to reach out to me, leave a message in the comments, and I would love to help you on your home search journey, especially if you're in Washington state or if you're relocating to the area. Again, my name is Larissa, and I hope to connect with you soon, and definitely go follow me on social. Talk to you later.